Not sure I am ready. It's my fourth session already in row. So if I start speaking something understandable, just, be understanding. All right, cool. Okay. Hello again to our online viewers. And gentlemen, you will have to get used to addressing an empty room. But we have an audience online. So thank you very much for joining me for this final debate on coffee breaks, on lunch breaks at this Riga conference, which is titled A Reset, Russia and Northeast Europe. We have a distinguished panel again. Stanislav Tkachenko is here. Thank you very much for joining us, Director of Diplomatic Studies at the St. Petersburg State University. We have Veiko Spolitis here, who used to be my colleague at the Riga Strategic University, so I'm a bit biased. He's my ex-colleague, but he's now a Vice Minister of Defense at the Latvian Ministry of Defense. And then we have Ambassador Per Carlsen from the Royal Danish Embassy in Riga. Thank you, all of you, for coming. Let me start out by addressing Veiko Spolitis here. Reset, that has been the term that has been applied to U.S.-Russian relations, but nevertheless, also in Latvian-Russian relations, the term has been used repeatedly over the last years. Has there been a reset? I mean, what is your assessment, let's put it this way, of the last period in Russian Baltic states, for example, relation? Have they been stabilized, perhaps, by the American-Russian reset? Has there been a Latvian-Russian reset? Has it been provoked by American reset, encouraged by the American-Russian reset? Or is it all the talk of the reset is just stupid? What is your assessment of that?
Thank you. I think you put it quite correct, because if we speak about the reset, then reset is a, if we may so, a kind of macro policy, which is defined between the United States and Russia, for example. So therefore, we are in a way monopsonist power. We are receiving side, so therefore there is no reset. And I would say that Russia has its interests, Russia has its neighborhood policy, and if we look where is the Latvia's or the Baltic states' position, we are members of NATO and European Union, so therefore Moscow must talk with Brussels, and that changes that perspective. If you ask it more broadly, I don't want to take too much time here, I would say that...
Please do. It's not.
I would say that basically, of course, there is a change of a Latvian government, which happened in 2009 in March. Since then, we have had two elections, and I would argue that the relations are becoming more pragmatic, because Latvia finally is doing what it had to do quite a long time ago. It's been cleaning its house. It's been restructuring its economy and political system. Which is very essential, because this is which has been a theme for this conference yesterday and today as well, that we have to have European house in order, which implies in Latvia we also have our house in order, and I think we are doing it quite well. As much as it concerns relations with Russia, it's another issue, because we see that since Putin coming to the power, Russia's pronouncements haven't changed very much. These are the accusations, so to say, about the inadmissibility of the Non-Citizens Institute, which also shows certain jobs we haven't done in Latvia, certainly very liberal approach to the mass media and electronic media law, which is changed in Latvia right now. So I think the relations are pragmatic. And if we speak about reset, perhaps it's too high over the word, and let's leave it to the superpowers. And at the same time, let's see how we can manage our matters in a framework of the European Union and the NATO.
But coming back to your points again, so you basically you do agree with the analysis that over the last period, say of 4 years, we have witnessed a certain, if we compare to the previous periods where those relations were quite oftentimes emotional, oftentimes you know, on the level of a very heated rhetoric between the, say, Poland, Russia, or Baltic states, Russia. This has changed over the period. The relations have become more pragmatic, and your reasons for that was basically the kicking in of effects of our accession to EU and NATO, but also a more pragmatic approach from the Russian side as well. Am I summing up correctly?
On the first part, you're absolutely correct. But on the second part, obviously, from the Russian side, my colleagues here will perhaps touch upon the issue of internal politics in Russia as well, meaning the carbohydrate sector of the Russian economy. How does the lobby influence EU and Russian relations? We just heard, and probably in a plenary session we will have a very interesting debate on the Gazprom, the latest ruling by the DG Com. So all these issues substantially influence also Russian-Latvian relations, even though Russian-Latvian relations from the Moscow's perspective are nuisance because no one really pays attention to Latvia as such, as some of the populist forces perhaps wish in Latvia.
Right.
That it would be on a daily basis that there is someone concerned about Latvian and so on and so forth. But it's just business, I believe, amongst the big conglomerates.
I'll let you go for a moment. I will just point out my disagreement with the fact that you refuse to term Latvia a superpower. You know, be more patriotic. Come on, Mr. Tkachenko. Would you agree that that there has been a toning down, a more pragmatic relationship that we're observing between Russia and this region over the, say, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if should we say that the milestone was in 2007, 2009, but during the last 3 or 4 years, well, for a number of reasons, the Baltic states disappeared from the media space in Russia. And in fact, we already said all the key words which I would like to say to describe the Russian-Baltic relations. First of all, there are less and less, different feelings, personal rivalries, and other. Russian politics is very personal. So in relations toward Baltic states, the business is coming instead of different feelings and statements. So that's one. Second, I would prefer to analyze Baltic-Russia relations as two levels, two tiers relations. On the one hand, we do have a lack of understanding, or definitely lack of trust between our political leaders. On the lower level, we have money coming, Russian money coming to Baltic states, to Baltic banks, and to infrastructure. We have thousands of tourists coming back and forth. So it's really two different relationships which at one moment probably should merge in a better interstate relations. In that case, of course, reset is sort of magic formula. Well, probably there will be no reset, partly because of scholars in political science very skeptically evaluate the reset in US-Russia relations as well. So maybe it's not a reset, but something new invented or proposed for developing more broad socio-economic political relations. And finally, also another important point has been mentioned. Russia is a very traditional diplomatic country. We do believe in bilateral relationships with the big countries. With time, Russia is more and more accustomed to deal with Brussels, even if still probably Russian leaders don't understand really the philosophy of European integration. So from this point of view, definitely we talk about President, Prime Minister, or Minister of Foreign Affairs, who by constitution have a right to present Russian international relations. They definitely prefer to talk to big guys, Berlin, Paris, Rome, Brussels, but not to small countries. But if you look into the economic policy of Russia, during recent years, Russia is very seriously take the problems of developing cross-border cooperation links. Russia initiated integration. I would say definitely more economic, than political integration in the former Soviet Union, and the issue of improving technical improvement of relationship with neighboring countries, breaking the bottleneck on the transport links between Russia and Estonia Estonia, Russia, Latvia, Russia, Finland. It's an important issue. Also, developing twin cities relationship between some Russian cities and Baltic cities. So all that means that with the time being, we are more accustomed to live each other in a normal way. So this is a strategy for future, maybe not reset, but just slow improvement of relationship.
Let me again put it very simplistically. What is your analysis of how the Russian policymakers view, for example, the Baltic states? Is it more the old term near abroad is still applicable, or is it now actually it is European? It's not anymore the near abroad. It is the European Union and NATO.
Yeah, definitely second point. In fact, if you look into Russian rhetoric, near abroad term disappeared 10 or 12 years ago, so it's not anymore.
But the term disappeared, but the psychology perhaps...
No, yeah, now I come to the second issue, which is, from Russian, well, as I interpret Russian leadership, from Russian point of view, Baltic states are still in the process of developing their statehood, they are improving their sovereignty. From that perspective, they are more dependent on Washington and Brussels than they should be if they will be more self-sure in their state and their society. First, second, these economies, their economies are still quite dependent on the processes in the European Union in general. So there are a number of things which, number of ideas which from Russian perspective, put them into, I would say, semi-sovereign countries up to now, but the trend is quite obvious. 10 years ago, attitude toward Baltic states was absolutely skeptical. And that's why the rhetoric about minorities, the rhetoric about their, role in Russian transit has been used now since membership in the European Union and NATO. Well, first of all, European Union, of course. Second, after the tremendously fantastic 10 years of economic development of Baltic states in the late 90s, early this decade, so they are at least a very reliable partner in the economic sphere. In terms of political sphere, again, Russia prefers to talk to big guys.
Right, fascinating points. Return to them, but want to involve our third guest here, Per Carlsen. You're a diplomat, of course. You have certain limitations of the statements you can offer us, but nevertheless, how does it look like from a friendly Nordic diplomat working in Riga? Do you share the analysis you've heard up to date?
If I may go back just a little, last week we had a conference in Vilnius with Nordic and Baltic states, Epine meeting. And the discussion went on how do we see that the US stay interested in our region? You mentioned that. What do we do to keep Germany interested in our region? What do we do to keep Poland interested in our region? And finally, what about Russia and our Nordic-Baltic region? And as always with such conference, you don't reach one conclusion, but still, I think the conclusion was that our region is so quiet that we have stability economically, politically in our region. So the big powers are looking to what is going on in the Middle East these days, what is going on in Iran, what is going to happen to China, and so on. And that's the reason that we cannot attract the same attention as we could 20 years. And I think that's very good. It's very good for our region. So I don't want any reset, actually.
So it is great to become boring, right?
Well, what is wrong about being boring? If it means stability, people are living better and better. We are getting out of the crisis. We are working well together. We are trading well. I don't see any problem of being boring.
Just to follow on the Per's announcement of being bored, to be honest, I mean, look on all of the evaluations. Where are the best education systems? Where is the best welfare state? Where are the most inclusive societies, press freedoms, and so on? Scandinavia tops all the charts. So obviously, for a Baltic states, this is the prime example, and we want to emulate that. And we've been stating that we want to integrate within the Nordic-Baltic region. There are certain steps made. It could happen even deeper, but that's a very understandable and conscious decision of the Baltic elites to go that way.
I would like to follow and to say that if you look around Russian borders, Baltic region is definitely the most peaceful, the most economically advanced, and region that never bring Russia any real challenges to the security. So from this point of view, there is a lack of interest of Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the region simply due to the fact that the scarce resources of Russian diplomacy are more oriented to solve the problems so in the Caucasus, Central Asia, China, some other regions, and we take for granted that in this region nothing serious may happen. That's why it's a region for public diplomacy, for business, for transport, infrastructure development, but not for really high politics.
Yeah,
Well, just again, that's when we talk about the big powers and the big countries around, because I think it's very typical that, take for example Germany, Kiel as a Baltic city is interested. Hamburg is interested. In Poland, Gdansk is interested in Russia. I was ambassador in Russia before. Kaliningrad, of course, is interested in what is going on in Riga. But to reach all the way to Moscow, which is looking in all directions, it's nuts. It's boring, yeah.
There was a question coming in. It escaped on the Twitter, but it concerned Vladimir Putin's third presidency and what can we expect? What differences could emerge compared to the previous periods? Because as all of us observed, the public support or the consolidation, so the monolith of the Russian system is perhaps not as hard as used to be. Basically, the question boils down to the fact whether you foresee during the coming years, the third presidency of Vladimir Putin, do you see a domestic context changing in Russia that could affect Russian policies toward this region?
Yeah, thank you for the question. First of all, it should be very clear. Putin never left the central position in political life of Russia, and for years of Medvedev, it was just interregnum between two periods of living in Kremlin and running the country. And you're absolutely right also in the fact that now the key challenges to Russian stability, Russian security are coming from inside. Russia is going through the process of transition as well as Baltic states, and now it reached to the point where the growing middle class pretends to demand from the government fulfilling some functions which government never fulfilled before. So it's a complicated process. Of course, it led to the fact that popularity of Putin, which was between 17 to 80%, now is between 50 and 60. So it's still comfortable support from public opinion. But again, summing up, the real challenges to the regime which was developed or created by Vladimir Putin are coming from inside of the country, not from outside.
And policy effects? Could it have foreign policy consequences?
Yeah, well, now we are still living this sort of transitional period. Later to this year, the new foreign policy concept should be announced, adopted by Vladimir Putin. And if you look at the two previous documents, 2000, 2008, they were very, I would say, pro-European in a sense that that was our key partner, European Union, economic relationship with the EU, by far the most important foreign economic relations. Now we are expecting for a new sort of changes of priorities in the list of for Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russian diplomacy in general. But again, generally speaking, it will transform Russia into the way business as usual. So business to
quick concluding statements. We have literally
basically
minutes.
Whenever you have problems internally, and Russia is not the only example. There are many examples throughout the history and in many countries. Whenever you want to consolidate your regime and you want to have a peace at home, it's sometimes rather useful to have some winning war outside with some small country. So Georgia 2008 gives us a nice example. While stating that, I don't mean now that there is some threat perception. No, not at all. But definitely we speak about psychological warfare, which is ongoing. We speak about compatriots policy of Moscow, which is legitimate from the Moscow's point of view, but at the same time we must understand that this is our weakness, so we must fix it. And this is what we are dealing with in Riga, Vilnius and Tallinn.
Any concluding statements?
I very much agree. I saw what Putin said the other day about Rossotrudnichestvo and Kosachev and using the Russians abroad, and there will still be possibilities of trying to use such things, but I don't see it as a serious problem.
Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Stanislav, Tkachenko, Veiko, Spolitis, Carlsen. We have to vacate these chairs because the regular scheduling returns of the Riga conference and the important people who will have the full audience will come and take our place. So, but thank you anyway for a fascinating discussion. Thank you very much.